Are we ready to start, or is Miss Evie on, or should I present our guest speaker?
Is Mr. Zinn on?
He's just joining the call.
Okay.
We want to give it another, what is it, 1 minute or two?
Maybe two.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Zinn. Do you need to share your screen at any point?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I guess I'm in.
You are. Do you have a PowerPoint presentation that you want to show, or are you just going to talk to us?
No, I don't have anything like that. I will just if there are some questions, I'll do my best to try to answer the questions for you.
Okay, awesome. I just wanted to check to make sure. We'll get started in momentarily.
Okay. I guess that Reverend just tried to call me by some chance.
Wrong person.
Huh?
Wrong finger move. I was trying to call someone else and hit yours.
Oh,
accident.
okay. Gotcha.
Hey, Dr. T.
What'd you say?
I was speaking to someone on the call.
Oh,
I
I'm
thought
sorry.
I saw Dr. T on here.
Okay.
Okay, well, we could go ahead and get started now if you like. And we want to welcome everyone to our meeting on delinquent taxes, Rural Root Progressive Coalition. I'm glad everyone was able to spend some time with us this evening. Our special guest is going to be Mr. George Zinn. He is the Marshall County Supervisor in District Number 4. And we want to welcome him as well, Mr. Zinn, for coming in to talk with us today. And I will let you go ahead and do your presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let me just say good afternoon, I guess, to everyone. I'm gonna just try to share a little information that I have. Now, there's one thing I do want to know, and I want to make everybody aware. The tax assessor's office is not my specialty at all. Quite naturally, there are issues that come up in the tax assessor's office that she has to get approval from the board to actually make changes or whatever to uh, some of the assessments and stuff like that that come up that it might have been errors and all that kind of stuff. I think the main thing that maybe you may be concerned about is maybe I'm not sure is that we kind of had a pretty good little mix up in that assessor's office after the previous assessor left. And at this point, it's Mrs. Belfer. She won that position, and she's managing that and running that office right now. When she came into that office, um, her research discovered that there were several parcels that never did get assessed. I think it was like 124 or something like pretty close. That the previous assessors never got around to, did the assessment and actually even got it on the roll. And when she came in, it was real chaotic. They're trying to get all of that done and in place. Um, I am uncertain exactly about the actual value of those. Most of those properties now have been assessed and on the roll, but there is some escape taxes that would have to be collected. I myself am not at will right now to say the process that will be used to try and collect them. I know that the assessor prepared to let a letter come out to those areas that's affected, and there will be some arrangements that I'm understanding that the payments could be made to get them caught up. Um, I think the way that this actually got started and got noticed per se is because there were, out of all of these properties that have never got on the roll, the state tax commission had picked it up, and they had started revoking homestead exemptions because they realized that there wasn't a residence, no dwelling, nobody's on those different properties, and that kind of set the flags, raised the red flag. And so then there was really a rush then going, trying to get all those things in place, uh, you know, for to get the road completed. Normally, the road is complete, and somewhere around the end of July, and then the board starts trying to set our budget, around August or the latter part of August. And in September, they normally run it in the paper, and then they will have a hearing. It was a public hearing on the budget. It's normally be set for the 15th of September, public hearing. And that's an opportunity people would come in and kind of understand, get a little bit better understanding of what the budget is, how they maybe arrived at it, and they had any questions about it, they have an opportunity then to discuss it. But the tax assessor's office, I think that, to those who have concerns about it, they could always try to go to the office and address the concerns. And if, for the case of some kind of appeal or whatever like that, then, it'll be brought to the board of supervisor at that time. I don't know. There is, again, I started off, I was saying that there was some rumors about maybe how much taxes were delinquent or that was missing. I'm not exactly sure about that. I don't think that it was nowhere near no $2 million for those properties, those 24. I mean, I'm sorry, that 124 or so properties that just had escaped the assessment there. So that's kind of where we are with that. And I would just say to kind of stay tuned. And here's the other side of that. I would like to also say that sometimes some of those people who actually had these homes built, and they were just paying the taxes. They were just paying the taxes on the land itself, or the lot, I should say. And normally those lots it wouldn't have been anywhere near what it would have cost if the home was actually, built on it and someone was, living in it. So some of that should have been a red flag to some of the people who had built those homes in my opinion, and I might be wrong, that know that the taxes on a $200,000, $300,000 house, would have been more than, $300, or $400 at max. So that's kind of where we are with that. So if it's anything else I can answer about that, I'll do my best. But like I say, that tax assessor's office, independent office, they run that whole office themselves. I'm not 100% up on all the bells and whistle, all of the codes, and all of the the, the system that they go about evaluating, the cost and everything. But that would be where you would get those exact offices, those equations and stuff about, how they settle on the actual cost, of property, assess the cost that is.
So as you explained to me, Mr. Zinn, so the person was paying on a lot,
Uh-huh.
but once they got the house built, that's where the shortfall occurred.
Yeah. Most of those people, like I say, they would go to the planning office or the zoning office, whatever, and they would, pull a permit for a home to be built. And at that point right there, it would have been a value probably put on that lot. And so what they were doing was they were paying the taxes on that lot, pending the house was actually constructed. And when the house actually got constructed, it never was assessed. So it never changed from whatever amount that they were paying just for the taxes on their lot, is what I'm saying. And now is how that happened is, I'll be honest about that. I think we had two assessors in that office, and they just, wasn't on the job. They were just lazy and didn't get out and assess those properties. And I was saying once before, I know that, Marshall County experienced quite a housing boom, and it appears if it ended up that they could not keep up with that amount of building, then they should have, addressed it with the tax assessors, who was Mr. Juanita Dillard at that time. But the fact that they did not do it, and they got way behind, and it left that new office trying to get all of that stuff caught up and in place, and proper taxes. Now, I do know that the county went ahead and hired outside assessors to come in to catch all of that up. And so they have been assessed right now for sure. But they're still, back taxes that will be due. And again, let me just say the method, I know they're going to have to create additional paperwork for billing to, for that. They wouldn't be able to tack it on to current charges on your property. So they are doing that, and then there would be a letter that will come out from that office that would kind of explain the process behind that.
Did you drop off?
What you say?
I thought we lost you. Okay.
No, I'm still here. I just paused after that statement.
So was it one development, one subdivision, or is it all around the county?
Oh, it was scattered all out. Most of it was up on the northern end. I will say that. I had a couple of owners that called me that was in my district. I'm kind of on the Fort South end. But only thing I could do was direct them to that office, and that office discussed that matter with them. And as far as I know, with the couple of people that called me, and they went into the office and they kind of explained to them how it happened. I guess they were pretty much well aware that they had not been paying what they considered, reasonable taxes on the property, and I hadn't heard any more myself. Now, so I'm assuming they just made the necessary move to correct it or get it taken care of. And I do know that a lot of time there are monies that's put into escrow that will cover taxes. When they finance these homes, they want to make sure the taxes paid if nothing else, so they wouldn't lose the property. So there was probably money set aside in those escrows to cover most of them. So I guess the question becomes, did they hold the money, or did the mortgage company send it back to them and they use it for something else? I don't know. So like I say, it was just two that called me personally, was in my area, and I did ask them to address that concern directly to that office, and I have not heard anything else about it. But most of it, the majority of it is up around, the northern end of Byhalia and up around, Mount Pleasant, and up in that area up that way on the northern end. And
So how many years was that? When can you get a handle on what year it might
I
have?
think it went back to somewhere like 22. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Did you hear what I said? It went back to, 2022, most of them.
Okay.
They discovered some other discrepancies in that office, of course, because, they actually discovered that there was there was a few businesses that was operating probably in Byhalia and a couple other places that had never got registered as businesses or whatever. And so those taxes had been being escaped as well. So that's kind of where we are. Is trying to clean up all of that the best we can.
So was there also a problem with homes or properties being underassessed?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand that.
Or was there also a problem with homes or properties being underassessed?
Um, I I don't know of a case. I didn't hear of a case. Now, all of them we don't hear. Every now and then, some of them will come over if they're not satisfied with whatever explanation that the tax assessor is giving. I've not heard anyone talk about a property being underassessed. Now, I have heard of some cases where they felt like the property was overassessed. And at that point, that would have been a case for the assessor to explain just why that particular property would have been at a different price than a similar property. Now, we've had, quite a few of those that would have come up, you know. Now, I want to mention something else that's going to probably face a lot of people are going to face, if I can. Like every 4 years, you're familiar with the state would do that reassessment, and the state would automatically, come up with a different formula or whatever, and your house, they estimated that it could increase like 30%. Are you kind of familiar with that?
I know about the 4 years, but I didn't know, I never heard how much it could increase to.
Yeah, that's the state's regulation now. Really, the counties don't have any real control of that at all. Now, what the counties normally try to do is they try to, cut the millage back to try to help absorb some of that increase. So and the county is actually doing that because they're guesstimating that we should be able to probably cut like somewhere around about 7 to 8 meals, and still would probably have enough revenue coming in to actually run the county, and everything, because the value of that meal going to be much more after that that state reassessment of properties. Okay, that was my last statement. I guess I'll say that at the end of my statement, so we know we're still connected.
Yeah, I'm still here because I was trying to formulate a question. I'm
Okay.
trying to give other people the opportunity to question. So,
I have a question, Mr. Zinn.
Okay.
Could you explain to us how homestead works?
The homestead, they will give a reimbursement back to the county. I think about I want to say $300, and I might be wrong on that, but the state would normally give, a reimbursement back to the county that would have offset, you know, the homestead. And to qualify, you have to live in a what you call a class 1 property, meaning that that's the property that you actually residing in. A class 2 or 3 wouldn't fit in, wouldn't qualify for a homestead exemption.
So the exemption is if you're sitting on 1,000 acres and your house is sitting on the 1,000 acres, do you get some type of discount, you say, for that's considered your homestead? You live there and that's your acreage.
Yeah, you would get that. You would get that exemption, homestead exemption for that total amount. But keep in mind that probably if you're just sitting on that much farmland is just totally different. That I'm sure you're aware of that. It wouldn't. It's nothing like the developed property or anything. So, but yes, if it's sitting on that acreage, it's attached to it. It would be all included for that homestead exemption.
So the homestead exemption, it doesn't mean that you have to be farming the
No,
acreage. It says
no,
your
no.
house is sitting on a large, wide, maybe
Yeah.
2 acres, maybe 200 acres.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be farming it. No, no, you don't have to be farming it. It be a part of the homestead exemption, for that dwelling. Now, if it was not a dwelling on it, it wouldn't you wouldn't be considered a homestead exemption.
Well, for property that is rezoned into residential from agriculture, is that considered still a class 1? And even though it's like 2.5 acres, 2.5 acres is residential. It's sitting next to agriculture, but you're residential 2.5 acres. That's
Okay,
not considered homestead.
wait. Now you said when it came from a farm to a class 1. Is that like class 1? That's commercial.
No, it came from agriculture land, and we decided, okay, we're gonna just carve out 2.5 acres for you to have a house on, and then so it's been issued as residential property, not agricultural property.
Uh-huh.
Is that considered homestead? Even though it's residential, it's considered residential now that you live there, not agriculture property.
Okay, now if you cut it out, keep in mind, I'm saying if it was all on the same estate, it would be considered homestead. But now if you cut it out, you carve it out, just that portion you carve out, that's what you would get could be defined as a homestead exemption on,
Okay.
not the farm or
hmm
whatever.
Okay. So the classification being considered residential, you still can have the homestead exemption.
I'm actually to repeat that again.
The fact that you can have residential, the 2.5 acres now is classified as residential.
Is a house on it
The house is on it in the county.
and you're living in it or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, that it would qualify for homestead exemption for sure.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm still here.
Okay. And one more thing. And that exemption, that homestead exemption, that's a certain percentage off of your taxes that you would pay if you,
Yeah.
it's a percentage off.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And that's how they state give those reimbursements, and that's the way that, to be quite honest, they may have never even realized that all of those properties were escaping taxes, had the state not send those notifications of cancellation of homesteads, to be honest.
And I have one last question. I believe it's my last question. Why are the rates so much higher for a small plot in the city as opposed to the county?
A car?
Plot.
Oh, a plot. Okay.
Lot, whatever.
Okay. Now, develop, you know that develop, if as I mentioned before, a developed property is assessed on a whole different level.
Okay,
You know, so I mean, if it was you could have a lot that's in the city, perhaps, or a lot that's in a developed subdivision would cost you more than 20 acres of just, farmland or tree land, or, like that. And it's just the way it is. Once it's developed, they got a whole different formula that they use to assess them by. And I'm not saying that, always they are correct, because that office is the one that actually do that. And normally, if a person is not quite satisfied, they have a period of time that they can, request a hearing or whatever on it, for them to kind of explain, why, Now, only thing, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes people have had issues about a property uh, that looks similar to the house across the street, if I could use that term. And for some reason, their taxes might have been $300 more. In some cases, maybe a little bit more. But in that case, that would be a situation where you would need to speak to that assessor, or to take to the assessor's office to ask them to explain why, there's a difference in those tax assessments. Now, there's most of the time they can justify some difference in a house, whether it's got something in it that maybe the other one didn't have, or they noticed when they came out and viewed them. I have no idea, but I would say this, that would be the time to, if you think that for some reason it's over assessed, that you would raise that question, and they had the obligation to kind of explain to you how, in fact, they arrived at that particular assessment. I'm here.
Mr. Zinn.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I have a question about these here tiny houses, as they call them, the small houses. It's become quite popular in the rural areas for people to live in or recreation. Um, they're like they're 750 square feet or under, and in some states, you can build one and it's not considered increasing your taxes.
That I would not be able to, elaborate on. I would not. I have no meaning now. about those tiny homes, I'm quite familiar because I've had at least three people to inquire about those. But I thought it was 800 square feet. But I mean, yeah, you say it's 700 is the
Well,
minimum.
they're just tiny. I guess a tiny house is considered 800 or 750 square
Right,
feet, somewhere along in there.
right. Okay.
Yeah, and I would in some states they don't they don't make your property taxes increase because it's just a tiny house and they don't increase your taxes.
You know, but for some reason, um, I I don't know. And now that's a question directly for that office. But now
Mhm.
I don't if it's a structure, this is just me now. I can't debate that one way or the other. If it's a structure and actually it's generating specifically if you're living in it or if it's for generating revenue, because they got a different system of taxing. They can they can assess on the revenue end or either just the value end kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right,
But I just kind of doubt very seriously it could escape taxes. Now I don't want to be the one to say that, but I'm sure that office could they could tell you unequivocally what what that would
right,
be.
right. Yeah, because if you got an Airbnb going on, of course you're looking at some revenue,
Yeah.
and of course that's some taxes behind that. So I'll
Yeah.
look into that. I'll look. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Zinn? So, Mr. Zinn, do you see delinquent taxes going down, or how is the economy when it comes to this time of year when it's time to for people to pay their taxes? Do you see a decrease if the in the favor of people able to pay their taxes, or do you see more hardship?
Well, that's what I mentioned a moment ago. Mhm. Uh they had this reassessment, that mandated reassessment that came in from the state. The county has no control of that whatsoever. And so we had to follow their guidelines. Now, and they're estimating that it's going to would increase like about, 30 to 35%. Now, what the county does in consideration of the taxpayers, they try to reduce the millage to absorb some of it. It won't wipe it all out, but it will absorb it some. It won't be like, excuse me, getting hit, with a 30% increase, is what I'm trying to say. And all properties, won't that increase won't affect everybody the same. It's kind of depending on the values, of the properties. But I don't see it re reducing the actual value, but the county again will try to offset a little bit by cutting the millage backs on it. The county always has to be very cautious by cutting millage, because millage is you use millage to determine the amount of money that you collect to actually cover your expenditures, right? So the county is very cautious when they cut that millage. They don't want to cut it to the point where when the money start to come in, they can't even cover the expense at the sheriff department
Mhm.
or cover the expense at the taxes office or the clerk's office or that kind of thing. So they very cautious about that, but they certainly doing everything in their power to try to help absorb some of that increase that the state is mandating. But I don't see it going down, because actually I was in a meeting actually today, and actually the school we're gonna have to set a levy to raise probably about I think it's it's about $900,000, for the school district, in addition to the 2 million that we, would already be giving them. And that we don't have any choice over that. But we have to, if the school asks for those dollars, we have to make it available to them. So, it's a big mixing bowl there, and with
Right.
a lot of stuff happening within it, but it's all gonna come out at the same end, for sure. But to answer your question, I just can't. I wouldn't be looking for any decrease. There's no place for decrease when there's a mandatory 35% increase from the state. I just can't see it. I wish we could, and that's the truth, because I probably own it myself, and your hands are tied to an extent there.
Yeah. Because the cost of living is up, like everybody, everything around it is up. So is there increase all the way, all around?
It is, and I tell you, I'm nervous about this. All with this increase of everything, food and everything. I mean, it's going up, and I don't even know what it'll be beginning of next year. Kind of after this midterm, because that's where all that stuff is going to actually hit. So wow, I don't know. I really don't. Very concerned. I noticed one thing too. I noticed that the gas is starting to kind of crawl back up, and I know a couple of people that's in the trucking business, and they were saying, they finna get hurt real bad with that fuel, being able to move. And then I don't know, guy was telling me that they're having some problems getting freight now. They don't have the freight to move like they have been in the past, and it's getting real sticky. Matter of fact, I had a son-in-law that was in the trucking business, and it's kind of rough right now with him.
And I think I was at a board meeting and I was talking to my local supervisor, is he Walker?
Johnny Walker, yeah.
And he started talking about a new school in the area.
Yeah. Matter of fact,
How is that moving along? A new high school up in Mount Pleasant by Hilliard.
I just you to be totally honest with you. Now he kind of ran on that idea. And matter of fact, we were in a meeting today, and we were talking about the money that the school is requesting. They're claiming a shortfall or whatever. But what, I don't know. I mean, there's no explanation for it, but I kind of mentioned it to him. He was crying about why would they do this and why would they do it. And I was trying to make him aware that he was one that was advocating about the school, which I'd love to see the school too. But there's a lot of stuff tied to that, and
Okay.
I don't see him. Floating that bond like that to, because I know some folks gonna cry bloody murder. I mean, some of those taxpayers, if they to build that school, I know that. But I just was kind of ragging him a little, but he didn't understand what I was saying, but it's not bad now, but it will be if we get off into that, and I really want to see the school district, do good, and I advocate for a new school. And I tell you something, I think that it's going to be needed with the growth that they have now. I really think that eventually it's something that's going to have to get give, with the people kind of moving into new homes and everything. Sure. But it's going to take some people, that going to have to. I don't think he won't be able to be drawing up and crying, and when the school district now is asking for this you know, that those increases, you know, because it would be way more than what they asking for now if they build a school.
There's a question in the chat asking, is it necessary? I'm assuming they mean, do you think it's necessary to build a new school? And you kind of answered that in terms of the growth that's happening in Marshall County. Does that answer your question? The person who left the
Yes.
message?
This
Okay.
is Pat. Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Can I ask you a question quickly?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just kind of asking how's the program coming where you were trying to assist people who were delinquent or whatever. Is that working pretty good? Are you kind of satisfied?
I don't want to answer all the questions, but
Okay.
let
I
me jump
understand.
on it anyway.
No, don't do that. I
No,
probably
no, I
talk to
was
you
trying to
sometime.
give somebody else an opportunity to speak, is what I'm saying, Mr.
Okay.
George.
Okay.
But our budget was somewhat smaller this year. But we were able to help 3 people in Marshall, 1 in Panola, and also we'll be helping a person in Tate County, so 5 altogether.
Well,
But
that
one of the objectives of our Rural Roots Progressive Coalition is to start educating people on how to get money to pay their taxes on time. And
right.
also to show them how much money that they're given to an investor because they are late, because they do choose to wait until that second year when
Right.
all kind of money has been racked up. And what could you do with that money
Right.
if you had paid your money on time? I'm also thinking, show them what the future value of money is. Okay, so
Right.
if you save $400 and you were making 25%, which is, I believe, is what it ends up to be, the APR at 1.25 or whatever it is. How wealthy would you be? What kind of funds could you set aside for your family?
Right.
I think we're looking at something like that when we get our website up and running and on social media.
Oh, okay.
Start just educating.
Yeah, that's a blessing that you were able to help a single person. You know, that's wonderful.
And as always, we thank you for your assistance, because I know if I needed something, all I had to do was call you to tell me who this is and how to reach them.
Yeah, well, listen, that's fine. I don't mind, and I'm sure that probably I couldn't answer those questions like that office it could, that tax assessor's office, but I will suggest that if you got questions about that, you try to get. Are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm here. I did reach out to the tax assessor's office.
Okay.
It was not a very warm experience. Let me just say
Oh,
that.
oh, okay, okay. Wasn't very.
I left a message, I like talking through somebody, and then the person just wouldn't come to the phone, and I left a message, and I have not heard back from the individual,
Wow,
from Miss Belfour. I was really surprised.
wow, yeah, that is terrible. I kind of thought she was a little bit, a little bit more on point about the business.
And she's so engaging out in public, because I had talked to her previously and told her I would want her to come on the call, but that day, man, I was shocked. And that's that.
Yeah, yeah, I got you. Well, okay, I can only hope that the experience gets better. I would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get to her and speak with her about it.
Okay.
I will be tactful and diplomatic.
Okay. Well, I know you have the skills. Well, if nothing more, my phone has been ringing. That just happened to be my wife, and I'm assuming she's got something on the table for me.
Well, we want to thank you very much, Mrs. Zinn.
Okay, you're more than welcome.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
So we have our announcements here. The big day for the Small Farm Conference will be on Monday, the September 22nd, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, September 22nd, 23rd, and 24th in Greenville, Mississippi. And we are to register. I think yesterday was the last day, but it was a holiday. So we can do it today and tomorrow, Ms. Revlin, and so that would be the end of it.
So y'all submitted your applications?
Yep.
Okay. I'll do my part tomorrow.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else this evening, we want to wish everyone a good night, blessed day, and we'll see everyone next time.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Have a
All
good
right.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.